Former North Carolina guard Caleb Love, who initially had committed to Michigan, but there was a little bit of an issue with just enrollment and things along those lines. Never actually got out of the transfer portal. Decommitted from Michigan. Has announced he is going to Arizona.
Ooh.
Arizona. You know who visits Cameron Indoor Stadium in November?
Arizona.
The Arizona Wildcats.
November 10th.
November 10th.
That's going to be
Caleb
appointment
Love,
television right there.
back in North Carolina, taking on Duke.
I love it.
Do you?
I absolutely love it. And I think that I always thought that he needed to go somewhere that would still give him some freedom.
Okay.
That is not necessarily has a lot of structure to it. I felt like Michigan was okay, but that eventually Juwan Howard wasn't going to let him, throw up all of those shots that he threw up at Carolina. I kind of wanted him to go to Miami because I felt like, with what's my man's name? Isaiah Wong going to the NBA, there was going to be a hole there.
Yeah.
And, he's going to have other three-point shooters around him that could kind of insulate him if he, starts bricking a little bit. But he could still have some freedom and some mobility and probably be the one to be the driver of that offense.
Yeah.
I like the Arizona move because I don't really know a lot about Arizona, but I do know that they had their coaching change recently and that they're a program that's trying to build back up to what they used to be. That sounds like a perfect landing spot for somebody like Caleb Love, who's going to be a different type of player. You can't put a lot of structure around him. He has to have some level of freedom.
2 years left of eligibility.
Yeah.
Because he has a COVID year. So, again, 2 years left of his eligibility. Speaking of North Carolina and point guards.
Oh.
Elliottcadot, this is something that I actually dropped earlier this morning. Elliottcadot, the number 10 overall prospect in the ESPN 100 rankings for the class of 2024, will graduate early from high school and will enroll at UNC next week as a member of the 2023 recruiting class, something that he actually told ESPN earlier today, saying he thinks he's ready. There's no reason for him to stay in high school because quote, I can hang with college players right now. That's something that he said. And he did see himself, something also he told ESPN, that he does see himself as a one-and-done player. That's his intention all along. So he can get to the NBA a year faster, but he did leave in there and say, hey, you know what? If I do need a second year in college, I can still go for college for 2 years and basically be the same as what you did if he stayed in the class of 2024 and be a one-and-done that way. So he can actually stay for a couple years in college and basically get to the NBA at the same time. So we saw a couple weeks ago DeMarco Dunn, maybe it wasn't even 2 weeks ago, DeMarco Dunn of North Carolina enter the transfer portal just before the transfer portal deadline. And now it makes sense why. Probably because he knew that, hey, Cadeau was going to reclassify and come in, therefore, why would I stick around even more? If there's another guard coming in, there's a transfer from Stanford coming in as well, another transfer coming in from Notre Dame. So we're seeing Hubert Davis starting to really mold the roster, I guess, to his liking, if that makes sense.
So one of the things that was kind of a knock against UNC compared to what Duke and NC State had coming into this upcoming season, of course, Duke did most of their damage through recruiting.
Yeah.
Old school way. These are the great freshmen that are coming in. They lost one because Kyle Filipowski decided he's coming back, but that's okay. They still have four great freshmen coming in, have all these great players returning. With Duke, you kind of know the roles, you see the roles, and you see how people will fit into roles.
Yeah.
NC State, you had some guys leave, some guys transfer out, and they got a bunch of guys transferring in and two recruits coming in. You kind of see what the roles are going to be. It's set. With North Carolina, you weren't sure what's going to happen. Is R.J. Davis going to be your point guard? Is he going to be the two guard? Because we've seen that Carolina had most of their success this year when R.J. Davis had the ball in his hand because Caleb Love was kind of wilding out a little bit. But R.J. Davis is a little bit more comfortable coming off the ball. He's a small two guard, so he's gonna need somebody to give him the ball. Also, what's going to happen with Armando Bacot? Is it going to be him and RJ Davis going back and forth on the pick and roll? So now Elliottcadot kind of answers those two questions right there. You have the point guard who's considered a pass-first point guard.
Yeah,
a lot of people,
like old school point guard in that sense.
some people say that he is very Jason Kidd-esque in his style of play.
That's a big comparison to make.
Huge comparison. One of the best point guards to ever play in the NBA, Jason Kidd, current head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. And they're saying Elliottcadot could be that on the floor. 6'1", 161 pounds, so not a huge kid.
No.
But somebody that is going to get you your ball in spots. He's going to be able to set you up and make the teams better. And so now it feels like Carolina's starting five is probably in place. So if you have Cadeau as the point guard, then you have RJ Davis as your two guard, and then Cormac Ryan. We talked
Transfer
about
from Notre Dame.
the transfer from Notre Dame. He's a shooter. He's 6'5". He's a little long, so maybe you can put him on another team's, three, maybe another team's shooting guard or something like that. Put him in situations like that and get him the open ball. He could shoot the threes for you. Harrison Ingram, who is transferring in from Stanford, you talked about that earlier. He is kind of more of a small forward, but he could play in a smaller lineup. He could play that 4 spot for Carolina.
Yeah.
Really athletic and long, 6'7" himself, 230 pounds. And then you have Armando Bacot right there in the middle, 6'11", 235 pounds. It's starting to fall in place for Carolina now.
Yeah.
Now it's starting to make sense. Because before, when you mentioned when DeMarco Dunn left, what's happening with this?
It's like another.
What's going on? Puff Johnson left. All these other guys who left that you felt like could possibly be contributors, and now everything is starting to make sense for Carolina. The only thing that I'm thinking about, though, is does this leave Seth Trimble on the outside looking in?
Great question.
Seth Trimble came in last year as a freshman point guard. Didn't see a lot of minutes last season, but he was the guy behind RJ Davis. So now RJ Davis is being moved off to the ball. Then you're going to put in Elliottcadot. When Elliottcadot isn't in, you think that RJ Davis is probably going to be the main one handling the ball. What is Seth Trimble going to do?
Great question.
What is his role? That's the only question I really have.